Traveling the Vortex.
We've joined the Doctor as he travels the Vortex and arrive at episode number 316. And sometimes being a Doctor Who podcast just isn't enough. I'm Keith.
I'm Sean.
I'm Glenn.
How are you guys?
It's been a long week.
I'm not sure I'm me today.
Who are you then?
I don't know.
Ooh.
Keep having these weird dreams.
Seeing red a lot.
That's just because I'm mad. No,
That's
actually,
for
I'm
a
not
whole
mad.
other reasons.
Yeah, I'm not mad. I'm happy this week.
Did you guys have a good week?
I was actually off Friday because of course, I had to work tonight, but I was off Friday. Although I find working, so tonight I worked because I produced the newscast on the Fox because they wanted to bring their quote-unquote A-team in and bulk it up. Yeah, that's the first thing I almost asked my boss if I could be BA. But
And your boss would have looked at you blankly like,
probably.
what?
Dude, you are totally Hannibal.
I want to be Faze.
No,
Actually, I'd rather be
you're
Agent
Hannibal.
Murdoch. Anyway, so I worked tonight, but I have found that when you go in and you get 8 hours to focus on one newscast, I don't want to say it's easy, but it's simpler, and
simpler.
you can actually focus on doing a really good newscast. Mm-hmm. I wish I could do that more often. I'd have some really knockout newscasts. So yeah, so I did that tonight. But the nice thing is I got Friday off, and I haven't had a Friday off in a long time. So that was kind. And the kids were off this week on Friday too. So
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
it
Did
worked
you guys
out
do
really
anything?
well. We did nothing.
No, he came over here and hung with
I
me.
did, yeah. No, I went. We took dinner over to my parents because I'm trying this new thing on Fridays. I'm going over to my folks to at least have dinner with them or lunch with them, just so I can see them more often because they're getting up there in years and they're always home, and I rarely feel like I get over to see them except for to pick up kids or do those kind of things. So we went over and had lunch with them, and then Mason and I hung out in the afternoon, played Minecraft and some racquetball, and then in the evening I came over and recorded another Flicks with Friends. Another fun one.
It was a fun one.
I'm enjoying
it.
I'm enjoying him.
I've enjoyed watching them.
Oh, well, thank you.
I watched Tire of the Zygons earlier in the week just as a refresher.
I started it. I did not get the chance to finish it.
I did watch, even though I didn't join for Friday night, I did watch the two-parter from last season, the Zygons.
I'm glad we watched that this week. It
Yeah,
really.
me too.
First of all, it's just such a good story.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't think I really watched anything else. A while, I as a primer for Flicks with Friends, I popped in Snow White earlier in the week, and I watched Pinocchio.
I finished Westworld.
Ooh.
It's so good.
So it's done for the season?
Yeah. It finished a while
And season 2 won't be anytime soon.
Yeah.
You've got lots of time to catch up.
2018.
How come? Really?
I don't know why. I guess just because
Taking their time.
Yeah. Which they should, because where they leave it kicks open the doors so much for the next season.
I think it may have had part of their retooling because it was announced it was going to be a thing. They went into production, and then all of a sudden HBO everything ground to a halt. They didn't quite pull the plug, but it was just like, stop. We're going to rethink this. And they apparently shifted direction a little bit to get what we're seeing on the air.
Well, I read it was a mini-series to start out with. It was
I wonder
not
if that may
planned
have
to
something
be
to
a
do with it.
series, that it was just going to be a mini-series. And in fact, it was going to be a 4-episode mini-series, and that was it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so
Maybe
that's
they realized
probably
how
why.
good it was and
Yeah.
decided.
Realized there was more of a story there to tell. How far are you guys now?
I was wrong. I thought we had watched 5. We just watched 5 this week.
Oh, wow.
So I was even one behind where I thought I was.
How many total episodes are there?
10.
Okay.
So we're at the halfway.
So
It's getting crazy.
And you're still not to the big reveals yet.
Nope.
Some of the reveals in the latter episodes I did see coming, but there were things I were like, I wonder if, and then those things wound up being right. So it's not like it was, oh yeah, I saw that coming a mile away. It was more of, I wonder if that's what that is. And yep, that's what it was. I wish you guys had seen it so I could talk more openly about it.
I'm working on it.
I'll get there.
You'll
I've
know
heard
that
so many good things about it.
Yeah, it's totally worth it. And Sean, you'll totally know the big first reveal once you get there.
Okay.
Yeah, I think your jaw will drop and you'll want to watch the next episode. We did also watch Suicide Squad.
How was it?
Kind of a train wreck.
Oh,
You still haven't seen it, right?
I still haven't seen it.
Okay, so I went into it knowing what it was and knowing that it was kind of a mess, and I still didn't enjoy it. I had big issue with not so much the premise of the movie, more so the scale of the movie. It's a end of the world situation, and you're telling me the Flash and Batman aren't showing up to try to solve this problem too? Really? They're in this movie. Why aren't they there trying to stop the whole thing too? It's not like it's a short time. They got these guys out of prison to go out there and solve the issue. It's just a big logic flaw in the film. If
You've seen it or no?
Yeah.
if it had kind of like Deadpool, high stakes for the characters but not for the world, it would be different. But it's
Or for
end
the
of the world
city, or for
situations.
the...
Yeah, I mean, even for a city, something that big, I would think Flash would zoom over and try to help out. What's he doing? Just twiddling his thumbs, catching bank
Why do you think
robbers?
Flash is
Really, really
in the
fast.
world?
Because
so
we
far?
saw him in Suicide Squad.
We saw the Flash?
Yeah. Oh, spoilers.
I don't remember that.
He's who captures Captain Boomerang. It's in the very beginning of the
Which makes
film.
sense, because Captain
Did I
Boomerang is a
miss-
Flash
how did I
villain.
miss that?
Yeah, it's in the very beginning of the film.
Did you watch the extended Suicide Squad?
No.
No?
Not
I
that I'm
don't
aware of. It
remember
was a rental
I
from
don't
the library.
remember that at all.
I remember
don't that
seeing
part of it.
this Justice League character made a surprise appearance in the movie shortly after it came out in the theaters. And I went and looked.
And they weren't referring to Batman because he's in the movie as well.
No, because we knew he was going to be in it.
I don't remember Flash.
He was
in it.
even in the trailers.
Did I get there late? No, I didn't.
It was a very brief thing.
Huh.
I wasn't impressed with Harley.
You were not?
I felt like she was a caricature of Harley. Granted, my exposure to her is mainly just through the animated series and through the Arkham games.
Well, to be frank,
Those
she
are the
was
good versions?
created for the
Well, the-
animated
yeah.
series.
Yeah.
So she only moved over to comics after the animated series took off, and she was such a popular character on there. So yeah, I think you're justified in saying my only
that's my
exposure to her is, but that should
And
be
I
that
know-
should be the baseline for any
Yeah.
fan.
And I know they've done a lot of great stuff in the comics with them. I just haven't read it. But it just felt like her portrayal's fine. It just felt the writing of it was a caricature of Harley. Oh, this is what the studio thinks Harley is, and as opposed to what Harley really is.
Gotcha. That's what I was worried about with some of the trailers. It just...
I wasn't, and the Joker wasn't very good either. There were parts of the Joker that I thought, oh, okay, that's kind of cool. They're doing something different. But then there just wasn't enough of that differentness. He was almost just dropped in there randomly to remind you, oh yeah, he's in this movie too.
Yeah.
Don't forget.
I think the problem with the Joker is, number one, people expected more from the Joker, because when you make a big deal that Jared Leto's playing the Joker, it's gonna be this. I think the other problem is the character is far undersold. I think that I think it needed a stronger connection to the Joker, other than being Harley's love interest. I mean, that's
Yeah,
really how
that's-
it falls down. That being said, I think that this will do a nice job setting the Joker up for an adversary for Batman.
Yeah.
And I'm with you. I kind of liked some of the direction they went with the Joker, but overall the performance suffered because, although I hear a lot of it ended up on the cutting room
Yeah, I
floor,
heard that
so
too.
that might be why it feels that way.
I
But
think
I
it's more
loved
the use of the Joker in the movie is more my problem than the portrayal of the Joker.
I loved Harley. I thought Harley was the best part of that movie. I think it's remarkably different. It's starkly different from the Harley that we know from Batman the Animated Series. But
so
I
far,
liked where they
everything
went
in
with
the
it.
DC universe has been starkly different
that's
from
true.
the character we know.
Movie universe, yeah.
Movie universe.
I didn't expect to like Deadshot as much as I did.
I didn't
And
like Deadshot at all.
He kind of grew on me throughout the movie, and the end it was kind of Captain Boomerang had some great moments, and then some moments that just fell flat.
Yeah, agreed.
If they would have used those great moments throughout the entire thing, he would have been the perfect comic relief throughout the entire
Agreed,
film.
agreed.
And everybody else could have done whatever they wanted.
Agreed.
And then the other character that stood out to me was Diablo.
Yeah, Diablo was good. Well, Diablo is the character with some heart,
Yeah.
with some empathy.
I put my finger on what the problem I have with the DC cinematic films are. They take the approach to all their characters that everybody sucks. None of their characters good. They all are jerks. They're evil. They're bad. They're mean. They're whatever. Every single person sucks.
Everybody's dark.
Everybody's dark. When I go to a movie, I like to see at least one character that gives us something to aspire for as humanity, not a portrayal of everybody sucks.
Yeah,
It's-
it's a
Even
good
Paul
point.
Kent's in Man of Steel, no, don't go help them. he sucked. I mean, they all are bad in the movies.
You're hitting the nail on the head for me. I think you're exactly right.
And
it's the Batman effect. Ever since The Dark Knight, hit hard, DC's been bound and determined to, let's make it like Batman.
And it's fine to do that with Batman.
With Batman it is.
But because even then, he's still striving to be something better. Most of the characters in these films aren't.
Yeah.
It's just...
it's just like they don't get it. It's okay to have a wider color palette than what you're using, because Batman can be dark. Batman should be dark. Superman should not. And like I said, I can appreciate the story that Zack Snyder's trying to tell with the Superman films, but I think it's better served in a comic book. When I go to a movie, I want bright, shiny Superman.
Oh, yeah. The world is gray enough.
Yeah.
Shiny,
some black and white is okay in films.
Sorry.
And some characters are okay to explore the gray and morality. Other characters should not.
Mm-hmm.
Again, why Marvel's getting it right and DC's getting it wrong.
Exactly. Because they can still explore the moral grayness with Captain America and still have him be the good character that he is throughout the entire arc of his time on screen.
Yep.
I'll still watch it.
I'm hopeful for Wonder Woman, but I'm not holding my breath.
I'm the same way, and
although there was a trailer before Suicide Squad on the Blu-ray that I don't remember seeing, and it made me worry.
But the thing is, I saw Man of Steel and I was disappointed. Then I saw Batsuit and I was disappointed. I was excited for it, then I was disappointed. And then I wasn't going to set my expectations up for Suicide Squad. Then I saw a really good trailer and I went, oh, okay, maybe they're doing this one right, because it was fun, it was bright, it was jovial.
Yeah.
And then I saw the movie and went, nope, you went right back to status quo with these films.
Yep.
And so as incredible as the Wonder Woman trailers look, now I haven't seen the one that you're talking about, obviously, but as wonderful as the Wonder Woman trailers look, I can't set my expectations very high for it, because I've already been burned 3 times now.
And I'll say this about Suicide Squad. I will rewatch Suicide Squad before I would rewatch Batsuit.
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment as well.
Of the rewatchability, I think Man of Steel is probably the highest of all of these so far. Did you watch anything, Sean?
I'm kind of with Glenn. I did a lot of research this week gearing up for Flicks with Friends, because we talked classic Disney. That episode's not out before anybody goes going, oh, and gets super excited. It'll be a couple of weeks before it hits, because I still have to edit it. About to watch the season finale of House of Cards for season 2.
Oh, okay.
And Mel and I are in the middle of season 5 of Next Gen.
Let's move on to some news.
What's in the news?
Oh, there was a big bit of news that dropped this past week. Peter Capaldi is leaving the show come Christmas.
I don't have my Price is Right
Christmas regeneration.
Bom, 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 bom. Oh.
Thoughts? I don't know what else to say is other than he's leaving.
I can't get excited or emotional or sad about the actors leaving that role anymore. We've been through...
We knew it was going to happen eventually.
Yeah, we've been through... I love Peter Capaldi. In fact, I think he shot up to be my favorite Doctor of the new era. He really has. Although I was excited for PCAP when they announced he was going to be the Doctor, because I really like Peter Capaldi. That being said, I thought I would take it harder than I did when it was announced, but on the flip side of that,
he'll have season ahead.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. I know there's a whole season to watch, and he's been there for 3 years, and only Tenet so far has done it longer, and barely. So it's
and knowing that Moffat is leaving, it makes sense that there's that handoff there too of the new Doctor.
I would rather them
anticipating him leaving it when Moffat did. Anyway.
I would rather them not do that for the sheer fact of I think that you should have a carryover, because I think it makes the transition better. But I can see the benefits of starting anew. It worked really well for Moffat and Smith. But on the flip side of that, I kind of like that familiarity going into Chimble, because we don't know that much about Chris Chimble and whether he's going to do. At least with Moffat. Chris is written for Doctor Who, don't get me wrong, but we knew from Moffat's stories ahead that we thought the Doctor was probably in pretty good hands. But with Chibnall, I don't know. That's what scares me more, is a new showrunner than a new Doctor. I think new Doctors are easier to get used to than new showrunners, because I don't know, maybe maybe that's a misstatement because the Doctor can be drastically different and maybe ruin a show, but I think a showrunner could do the same thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Not that Chris will. I'm just
I'm like you. I have a hard
cautious.
time getting upset about it yet because we have a whole nother season, and it kind of depends. I've loved Capaldi throughout his run. I don't always think he's had the best stories to be written for him. I'm intrigued to see how he is without Clara, because thinking back on Series 9, I think some of the strongest episodes, kind of like the Zygon 2-parter, he's not saddled with the Clara baggage. And I think that kind of brings down the stories for him and for me. I might wind up being really upset after Series 10 because I liked it even more so without her there. John, you want to weigh in at all?
I'm in the same boat. Peter Capaldi has been so extraordinarily good as the Doctor. I mean, he's always good, but when the episode's good, when the writing's good, when he's good, when everything clicks, it's some of the best Doctor Who we've ever had. But I think those moments are a little fewer and further between than maybe what tends to be kind of a mediocre episode with a great performance by Peter Capaldi. Mm-hmm. And so the announcement that Moffat was leaving, as much as I love Moffat, Moffat's writing is very storybook. He writes great fairy tales and fanciful things with happy endings. And then he kills everybody and he fools us. But that worked for Matt Smith. That kind of whole era was very fairy tale. Mm-hmm. And with Peter coming in and being kind of a darker in tone and a little more mysterious and kind of returning back to that, almost William Hartnell measure, I don't think Moffat was the guy to write for that. I was really looking forward to kind of having Capaldi without Moffat. I hate saying that. Not that it's going to be better, but it's just going to be different. Let's let somebody else have a shot at him who can see what he can do. And like Glenn said, it gives that transition. And we don't know. I mean, maybe Bill's going to stick around for the next season, and she'll be the one that helps the audience transition through it. I agree with you. I think the Clara story arc, I mean, I love Clara until she just kind of got buried under the baggage of her own story. Mm-hmm. Chibnall's going to come in. He's going to have a clean slate, which I know that's what BBC wants.
I'm sure that's what he would prefer, too.
And knowing that BBC is the BBC, I'm sure we're probably going to lean back toward a younger... let's get the female fans back on board and the young kids watching the show again, and it's become a little corporatized in that regard. And you have to play some of that because if you want to keep the show on the air, you have to play ball a little bit. I'm looking forward to season 10, but I'm disappointed that he's leaving. It's not the end of the world, as Glenn said. We've been through this before. The best thing to come out of it,
12 times specifically.
Yeah, the absolute best thing to come out of it was Janet Fielding's tweet. Which I laughed embarrassingly hard. I don't know why. It's not like I know these people, but
more so it was Peter Davison's response to her tweet.
Her tweet and then his response was like, oh.
Well, thank you, Janet. I see where you're going.
Yeah, he was pretty good too.
Oh, that Peter.
Yes, we'll have to endure months and months of speculation of who's going to be the next Doctor.
That's something I'm not looking forward to.
Yeah.
Everybody's already like the day Peter Capaldi's leaving and the day after. Who's going to be the new Doctor? Here's a list of 16 favorites. And it's like...
And then we're going to go through the whole argument again, which I don't fall on either side on. Should the next Doctor be a female? Why they should? Why they shouldn't? Why? I mean, should they be?
Well, there was some of that already starting when Chibnall was announced.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm actually refusing to engage in any of that this time.
I'm not looking at any links. But talking about Series 10, we got a return date confirmed of Easter Saturday proper. Not only our Easter Saturday, but the real Easter Saturday. So April 15th.
Put that in your pipe and smoke
it,
Glenn.
Mean?
Whenever
what are you saying that? I've been on board with Easter Saturday this time. I figured that was probably right. I still don't know how many Christians were offending by calling that Easter Saturday, but I don't know.
Because it's Easter Saturday.
I asked
BBC called it that.
Yeah, well, and that's what I said. I
they got that from us.
I asked Keith. Well, I hope not.
Whenever it comes back, it's Easter Saturday.
I asked Keith. I said, "Are we offending Christians when we call it Easter Saturday?" And he goes, "I don't know. That's what the BBC called it." And I went, "Okay, well then we're covered."
I don't think it has a proper name. So
I asked a guy at work who's a Christian if Saturday had a name because you got Good Friday, you've got Easter Sunday. I think it's Maundy Thursday precedes Good Friday.
Yeah.
I asked him what Saturday was, and he said, I don't think it has a name. I'm sure it does. I'm sure it does. We just don't know. Somebody will send in feedback next week, I hope, and say, oh, yeah,
Here's
Saturday
what it's
is
called.
this. So,
It's just the Saturday of Easter weekend takes too long to say. Easter Saturday. I know what that is, you know.
Yeah.
Easter Saturday.
And so, of course, in America, that means Class will premiere that day, too.
Yay!
If you have not got a chance to see that.
April 15th.
April 15th. Easter Saturday. Real Easter Saturday.
Real Easter
not
Saturday.
our Easter Saturday.
I don't understand what you're saying. Real Easter Saturday, not our Easter Saturday.
Because whenever Who comes back, it's Easter Saturday, no matter what date it is.
Is it?
You don't remember that joke a long time ago?
Oh.
If it came back in November 15th, we were like, hey, it's Easter Saturday.
I don't think I ever considered that, so perhaps.
We took it from the Community joke from when they pushed back the release date of season 4 or whatever.
I sort of remember that discussion now.
Yeah.
We also had discussions how my memory is really bad.
Yeah, that's
so.
true.
Well, no, we've made the announcement that Doctor Who will return on Easter Saturday, October 1st.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of Series 10, though.
And now he's sulking.
I'm sulking? Why am I
Yeah.
sulking? I'm not sulking. Why would I be sulking?
You never liked Easter Saturday.
But I don't mind it. It's fine.
There's that word. Fine.
Moving along.
I've been around my woman long enough to know that fine is anything but.
I'm not your woman.
Could be.
No, I'm pretty sure I couldn't. I'm pretty sure that is not possible.
Glenn's my old lady.
The way you two bicker sometimes.
You know, maybe you're right. Maybe you're right.
And I'm the kid trapped in between.
I don't want to go live with mommy.
You have to. I had him already. It's your turn. Oh.
That joke we've done before. Now that I think about it, that one I remember.
It was probably in an Easter Saturday argument.
Back to the archive. All right. Is there any other news?
Yeah. Couple bits.
Good news?
Good news.
Yay.
Depends on how you feel about
Oh.
things.
Good news, everyone.
Speaking of Series 10, the BBC has announced that Mark Gatiss will write a new episode with Ice Warriors for Series 10.
Bum, bum, bum.
Of course, he wrote the first story written for the modern era with Cold War. Gatiss teases a new kind of Ice Warrior will debut this time around.
Uh-oh.
Is there a name for it?
He did not say it. He's teasing
I can't
us.
add it to the special project.
Just
Treat.
quotes a new
A
kind.
new kind.
The Gatiss type.
No, I meant the title. Yeah,
Oh.
Gatiss title.
You sure you can't, Glenn? It's just an untitled Mark Gatiss Ice Warrior story.
All right, that could be a placeholder, I suppose.
And our last bit of news, Planet Comic-Con has announced a Doctor Who guest,
Who might that be?
John Barrowman.
Yay.
Captain
Captain
Jack is
Jack.
coming to Planet Comic-Con. And now, Jack was supposed to be here last year, but
think it
had
was
to cancel.
2
right?
years
2 years
2 years
ago.
ago, but had to cancel.
The Stephen Amell.
Yes.
Yes.
That'll be exciting.
They also announced that Carol Barrowman is coming too. So if you have any of the stuff she's written, you can get that autographed.
That's his sister, right?
Yes.
Including the new Torchwood comic, or
Yeah.
what's the book? Hollow Earth, Hollow Ground, it's Hollow something.
I don't remember. But she also wrote the
Way to come
Torchwood
prepared.
Dark Archer comic series.
Okay.
Or not Torchwood, Arrow Dark Archer.
The Arrow Dark. Well, there's a crossover for you.
Why not?
Captain
Hollow
Jack
Earth,
meets
you were
Merlin.
right. Hollow Earth.
Hollow Earth. I had it right.
Did he? Did he really?
Go back in the archive.
Easter Saturday.
I only have to rewind this episode about 3 minutes. 2 minutes. Not even that.
Easter Saturday.
That's it for
John
news.
Barrowman's coming on Easter Saturday.
Yes.
We don't know yet. We haven't seen that episode. Shall we move on to our reviews?
Yes, we should.
Zygon Who Fell to Earth. Save the watershed for later.
Yeah, we should do.
Yes.
Well, we're going to do this part, and then we'll do Traveling the Vortex After Dark.
have to come up with new theme music.
Well, we're still going to stay family friendly in this podcast.
Something with some saxophone. Well, let's talk about the good one. Let's do Zygon. let's do Zygon who
tip
fell
your
to Earth.
hand.
Yeah, oh yeah.
The Zygon who fell to Earth. There are no monsters this time, are there? 10 years later, an Auntie Pot is in her prime. She's snagged herself an ex-rock star at the Kendall Folk Festival, and now, in the brave new world of the early 1980s, they manage together a snazzy hotel on the poetic shore of Lake Gasmere. However, still waters run deep, and friends from the past are returning, intent on milking the old cash cow.
Is that really the description?
Yep. From BBC, or from Big Finish.
Here you go, Big Finish. Bum, bum, bum. Just on the strength of that review, of that synopsis.
I love how they use milking
Milking the old cash cow.
as the Zygons milk this garrison.
I really enjoyed this
Yeah,
story.
I thought this was a good one. Interestingly enough, this is one of these nice little one-offs in a series of Eighth Doctor adventures where you seem to, for the seasons, you seem to have kind of a continuing story arc. Sometimes it's very thin. Often it has, well, this season we have the Headhunter and Karen, I suppose. She's been back twice. Well, she's been in 2 episodes. But then we step away and we get a little one-off story here. Now, Auntie Pat returns, but
yeah, and it's picking up a thread from the first series.
right, exactly. So, which is kind of neat, but I kind of like the step aside and let's do something different out of what feels like the linear storytelling that we've got going on here. I just really liked it.
It's a fun story.
It's a clever way to bring the Zygons back too.
Yeah.
You know?
Is this the first time they did a Big Finish story?
This would have been their first big finish story of Zygons.
I believe so, yes.
There is a Fourth Doctor and Leela in Big Finish's Fourth Doctor Adventures Series 3, which would have come after this. So yeah, this is the first audio that Big Finish did with the Zygons returning.
I think they used it really well.
I think they did too. A lot of the familiarity from Terror, when we have a crashed ship that's been there for a long time. Obviously, nobody can come from the Zygon planet anymore because, as we know, it's been destroyed.
Yeah.
But it uses kind of the same theme of there's a crashed ship that's been here for a long time. They're trying to manipulate society so that they can take over the Earth. They have their own Scarison that's supplying them with their sustenance. It kind of goes along those same lines of Terror, but with a different theme and a different way of doing it.
And considering the format, I think it works even better because we have those familiar things, we don't need to retread a whole lot. And so having it in an hour-long format as opposed to a traditional, if it were part of the main line, 4-part story,
Yeah.
I would have felt a little cheated that it wasn't different.
Yes, I would agree.
But in this format, it works so well because they're able to have the familiarity and then introduce the new elements like Trevor, who is such a great character.
The cleverness of this is the fact that we have a rogue Zygon that has decided that he wants to be a human, that he's comfortable in living in his human life, and he wants nothing to do with his past Zygon life. And I thought that was kind of a clever concept, which we'll talk about this in a little bit. Maybe we should have done these the other way. We'll talk about this in a little bit, but there obviously wasn't an idea that hadn't been done before somewhere else in other media.
I think it, in a way, dovetails nicely into Zygon Invasion, Zygon Inversion. Mm-hmm. That after the truce that's developed in Day of the Doctor, that we've got, okay, here's 20 million Zygons living on Earth.
At the very least.
And you have to kind of wonder, well, why? What was part of the truce that required that?
Or would allow
it. You know, it was the fact that, well, we've got some people that don't want this. So can they come live here? They'll get out of our hair and we'll leave you guys alone. Oh, yeah, we can do that.
It at the very least sets a precedent.
Yeah. I think the other thing that works really well is the very clever way that they it's a dropped line almost that's a throwaway about so many pods came down in the meteor shower, whatever it was, that the Eighth Doctor is referencing the Fourth Doctor story. Mm-hmm. But it also opens up that possibility for, we could come back and visit this again with yet another crashed ship. Some of them got found and some of them didn't. And so, they're kind of wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Yeah, we know we've done this before, but here's a little hook that we may come back to it again. It's like, I'm good with that. As you said, Keith, Trevor's a great character. I think he's a lot of fun. I like how earnest he was, because there's a certain amount of the story that you kind of are waiting for the shoe to drop. When is he actually going to reveal what he's doing? And he doesn't. He's
the other shoe drops in the fact that Pat knows.
Yeah.
And doesn't care and still loves him anyways. It's like, oh, all right, that's where this is going. All right, awesome.
I think that's what's clever about it is the Doctor and Lucy need to reveal. They feel like they're going to have to reveal this bad news to Auntie Pat, and she already knows.
Yeah.
And she's fine with it, and she's known since the beginning. I think that was very clever. That
was kind of the moment that I stopped worrying about Trevor being,
Well, I think I did too, but I disagreed with I don't think I ever, from the very beginning, suspected that Trevor was anything but what he was, that he really just wanted to get away from the Zygon life and not have anything to do with it, live as a human. There was never any point that I thought, I wonder when he's going to show his true tentacles.
I wondered when he would be forced to no longer live that human life, but not so much, yeah.
I didn't listen to it waiting for him to be the bad guy. That paints me in a bad light too. But well, because they set it up fairly early. The guys are looking for him, and they're obviously Zygons. They're like the worst of any camouflaged alien ever.
I don't know. Maybe they were good for record producers.
Must
I
have
haven't
been.
met many, but they could be like that. I don't know.
But so the fact that these are these guys, and you're kind of going, oh well, Trevor's actually in real trouble here because he's apparently gone native. And there was just a moment or two where it's kind of like, well, are you really gone native, or what are you going to do with Auntie Pat, and why are you? What's the angle? And then when she came out and said, no, I've known, and it's like, well, he wouldn't tell her if he had an angle. So that was a nice role reversal. And one of the things that I kind of like about the truncated format is we don't have to spend a lot of time trying to keep the audience in the dark.
Yeah.
when
Lucy gets nabbed and immediately shows up and is not acting like Lucy.
she's down in the booze. Lucy. The Doctor even reacts. Lucy.
In a four-parter, that would have been dragged out.
Oh yeah.
At least the whole part.
And it would have been a whole episode, and it was been like, but the Doctor's like, yeah, I knew.
I was kind of surprised they drug out the Doctor revealing that he knew as long as they did.
Yeah. But I guess that's one of the nice things about having a familiar MO, knowing that they need the body in the imprint machine to be able to access the memories and keep them alive, so that he knows that she's not really in any danger yet.
Yeah,
Yes.
true.
Versus an unknown alien who's impersonating her, and maybe there's a little bit more pressing issue. So it kind of lets the Doctor play around with it and go, okay, yeah, we're going to do this.
I think the only concern I had was when the Doctor didn't seem to address the fact that the real Trevor was being kept in the basement and is on imprint. And I kept thinking, please address the elephant in the room here. You've got a Trevor that's been around since 1979. It's clearly now the mid-80s, and we haven't addressed the fact that you've got this poor guy down in the basement. But then I think that's satisfied later when it's revealed that Trevor would have died.
Yeah.
And so this was actually,
He was pretty much brain dead.
yeah, being able to live on his legacy. So I actually was kind of okay with it at that point. So, but it took a long time for the Doctor to address it. We have to discuss the real Trevor in your basement. And I thought, finally. I know there were other pressing issues, but you could have brought it up. I mean, come on.
And it's a clever way to allow a long-term Zygon format, or masquerading as a person. I thought it was a clever way to do that.
Well, and I think that also a clever thing was when Auntie Pat ends up dying, and Trevor decides to live out the rest of his life. Zygon Trevor decides to live out the rest of his life as her, in a tribute to her. And the interesting part of that is the fact is that Lucy doesn't know, and Lucy won't know. And that there is a reason behind why Auntie Pat is who she is in the future when they encounter her, or when Lucy knows her in the future.
Never did anything, never did. Yeah.
So I think that played out and worked out really well.
All of a sudden, all those tiny little threads just kind of...
Yep. Well, and you have that moment in your mind where Pat can't be dead because we know that Pat exists in the future.
Oh, yeah.
And then Pat is dead, and you think, okay, well, how are we going to fix this? Because now you've got a paradox or an anomaly, a time anomaly at the very least. How is this going to be fit? And then when he revealed, well, I kind of actually, when he came back, I kind of suspected maybe this is where they're going with it. So I did maybe clue into that a little sooner. But when that is revealed to the listener that this is why, then I thought, oh, that's really clever because it ties up the loose ends. You don't have to worry about a paradox. You don't have to worry about a time anomaly. So that worked out really well.
Yeah, I would agree.
Although I did like the doctor's rationale about sometimes these things just repair themselves. You know, she didn't go on to do anything special. She was, and he's explaining that to Lucy as why this could have happened because if she ended up being a nobody, then perhaps time sort of fixes itself and it doesn't disrupt the fabric of time. He soft sold it well enough that I kind of thought, okay, maybe we don't have to worry about paradoxes or things like this. When Trevor shows back up, then I thought, oh, I know where this is going.
Yeah,
it's a thoroughly enjoyable story, and I think part of the reason I enjoy this one, coming on the heels of Grand Theft Cosmos, that it's following that story, which I had so much fun with, and such a rollicking adventure, and then getting this one, which is just a nice, sweet little family story. Oh, and there's Zygons.
Well, and it's funny.
It seemed like they paired really well going from one to the
It's funny
next.
and fun too, but then it gets very heavy at the end, and so it works itself into the brevity of it.
I don't think there's anything else I had about
I don't
this
think
one.
so either.
It's really enjoyable.
It was a good story. Quite enjoyed this one.
I think Lucy continues to grow.
Well, she didn't get to do as
She
much
didn't
in
get
this
much.
one.
Yeah,
No, but let me rephrase. Sheridan Smith, I think, continues to grow as Lucy.
Yes,
that's
I
a better way to
agree.
say it. That's what I meant to say.
Well, yeah, she gets to kind of step out and do a little bit of a different part in this as well. So that's kind of nice to be able to stretch those acting legs.
Let's move on to the after hours portion. Zygon. Zygon Commander Kitrak and his second Torlok have been stranded on Earth for 20 years. Kritok has lost his sense of purpose. Can his second get him back on track? Sexy psychiatrist Lauren Anderson complicates matters further. That's the synopsis from IMDb.
I had... I wouldn't give it the horn, but there are some good things to look at. But I had to go and make sure that the same person that wrote this didn't write Zygon fell to Earth because there's a lot of similarities
it's strange,
to this.
isn't it?
It was so bizarre to listen to that and then watch this and think these things are like peas in a pod here as far as themes go. There's quite it gets quite different, but as far as themes go here, it's very similar.
Well, you've got a Zygon who, for all intents and purposes, has gone native. You've got
so
another
much so
one
he
that's,
doesn't know he's a Zygon.
Yeah, that was the more so about it.
Yeah, and then another one who's trying to get him back on track and back on to the
whatever they're doing.
Agenda.
The agenda. There you go.
Sure. It may not be the Zygon agenda, but it's an agenda.
Well, the overall plot.
Two Zygons. Two Zygons are going to flip a bunch of switches at a plant and terraform the Earth from that.
No, they're going around to all the plants.
Eventually, yeah.
Eventually.
But
Eventually.
we make it such a climactic moment, that showdown in the plant. And I think, okay, if you don't stop this one, it's going to be a minor event. Just stop the next one and you're okay. It's like, I don't think the plan was thought out that well, but okay.
No.
I never got back to rewatch the second half of this, which I had intended to do because I watched it in the first half. Kind of, it does its little thing, and then the second half comes on, and it ended, and I went, "What?" like there was a part of it that was, "What did I just watch?" And there was another part of it that was, "What?"
From which point did you start going, what?
About the half. Well.
So what point in the story, though?
The title sequence was like I was all kind of kid in a candy store. This is going to be awesome because it's going to be terrible and all. And then I started and went, oh, this is going to be this kind of terrible.
The first half of this story isn't bad. It actually it flirts with some ideas and some themes that I think work, and were interesting. It's just when you do get to a certain point where you start going, they didn't know where they were going with this.
Yeah.
And it just, now that being said, I think some of the, for being a low budget, on the edge of being a fan film, but it was professionally produced. It's got the acting in it is good. It's top notch for low caliber actors and actresses. I'm sure who they could get, and stock actors and actresses. The acting's pretty good. I think that everybody performs well. I think is it Bob Calhoun? I think the guy that plays the bad Zygon, I can't remember his name, his Zygon name. I think it was Bob. They kept calling him Bob. I think he was a little over the top, a little maybe forceful with the character.
A little scenery chewing.
Yeah, I wouldn't even call it scenery chewing, because I don't think it was that vaudevillian over the top. It was more just he almost pushed the character a little too much, put a little too much smarm and evil in it. But everybody did a good job. They all did a fine job, and so I can appreciate the acting standpoint of this. And it's especially challenging, I would think, to do a production with so many nude scenes in them. I mean, there's a lot of. It's not even really there's really hardly any sex in this story. No. There's some after it's happened, it's kind of, but
a little bit of leading up too.
And a little bit of leading up too, but
it's just that one really in the middle.
Well, there is that one, but for the most part, it's just nudity.
Yeah,
lots of nudity, or not lots of nudity, but gratuitous nudity in some scenes. I thought
full frontal nudity.
Full frontal male, which I think we're not. Even
especially in the US,
we're not used to in the U.S. And so to be able to do some relatively serious acting and still be able to perform these kind of scenes, I think that's a merit to these actors and actresses.
I think that, as you said, the first half, the themes of the first half are vastly different from the themes of the second half. And to my mind, what really feels like happened is they started off and they wanted to make this movie about a Zygon who was living his life as a human and not knowing that he was a Zygon, and then fell in love and started to kind of develop this, and then all of a sudden was reminded either through Bob or through the dreams that he is an alien, and the impact that would have. And I think that's an interesting theme. Mm-hmm. But then somewhere along the way they went, well, it's a Zygon movie. We're going to have him take over the world at some point.
Yeah.
So then you get the whole back half with this one plant. Couldn't you have come up with some? It's a science fiction film. Give me something. He invented a doodad that he's going to stick into this machine, and this machine's going to link up with all the rest of them around the world. Okay, I'd buy that. Why not? But no, we're going to travel.
Yeah.
What?
One planet at a time.
Do you have any idea how ludicrous that is?
To terraform the Earth.
What if somebody came around afterwards and just, that's the switch is
That's
wrong.
what should be.
How many times has that happened already?
Bob sitting in the command van. The rental van with all of his... And he's got all these red lights, and he's like, yes, excellent. Beep, green. Oh.
That'd have been a great follow-up. That'd have been a great follow-up to just show every time they change a plant setting that somebody's come behind them and going, well, this is not right. Shut it off. Call the EPA. Tell them that we're going to have to file a report. We had some pollution. I mean, it's like, what?
The first thing I kind of balked at the film was the somehow turning Lauren into a Zygon.
Yeah.
When she was human by just touching her. It's not like they even injected her with something.
Well, he had a blob.
He did have a blob. Now, I think where I could be a little forgiving with that, because I did the same thing. I thought, but where I could be a little forgiving is we don't know a lot about the Zygons, the Zygon culture, or the Zygon physiology.
They could have a stinger.
Obviously, you can. Obviously, the Zygons did not use a certain element that they had the ability to do in Terror of the Zygons that they used later in Zygon version, and that's zap people.
The electricity.
I remember watching Terror of the Zygons earlier this week going, boy, they sure don't even have any weapons. They just strong arm everybody and wrestle with the doctor. That's sure kind of ineffective. And then watched the two-parter yesterday and thinking, where was that ability?
Keith asked during Friday Night Who, have they always been able to do that? I don't remember. And I thought, I don't think so, but you have to ask Glenn because I don't remember.
They did not.
I didn't remember the silence stuff.
So that being said, maybe they have that ability. That's just never been expressed in any sort of media
true.
before. I think if they had more of a rooted back story like the Daleks, or like when the Daleks develop a new way of doing something, you notice it because you've known the Daleks for so long. When the Icemen develop a new way of doing something, you notice it because with the Zygons, maybe we can be a little forgiving. So
I was after like the first 5 minutes. I was like, but that, all right, whatever, okay.
There's also no
it works.
There's also no imprintation chambers. They don't store anybody. They put a little device on their back, which I thought was even more hard for me to believe because everything before that had used these chambers.
I could almost let that one slide from the standpoint that the technology's gotten better and more advanced, and everything gets smaller.
And I don't would even go so much.
The problem is when Zygon invasion comes around, we get the huge pods.
We're back to
the pods. Well, here's how I'm going to headcanon this one. They're also it also seems to be short term.
Yeah,
as well.
Yeah, that's true.
With the exception of Bob, who has.
Maybe he's got a pod.
Maybe he does.
We just never saw.
Although we did see Bob's body, the real Bob's body, didn't we?
Because he brought him over to her apartment.
Yeah. So, although maybe he pulled him out of the pod, put one of the portables on him, showed him, then took him back to the pod, popped the portable off, and it's like a battery. You've got AC DC.
What was the?
Anyway. So the acting's good, and I think that the story had possibilities as far as the themes were going. But then it steps into a drastic change in the middle, and it's like,
well, and to discuss the elephant in the room with the nudity, it's unfortunate in a way, and I'm no prude. I'm all for nudity, male or female. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Yeah, go bring it. But it just seemed very unnecessary. That, I think, was the biggest problem. That it's kind of like a kid in a candy store that once we could do it, let's keep doing it. And it's like, well, it's more effective if you use it properly.
Yeah.
And fitting in with the themes of a Zygon who's, in her instance, exploring what you can get away with and taking the guy's credit card and running off and doing a shopping spree and then exploring sexuality from a different way.
A sexual encounter from a different perspective, I think that works. I mean,
sure.
That's fine.
And that's an instance where the nudity was fine and appropriate for what was going on.
Even her relationship with Michael, too,
I
think was okay, too, because, I mean, they were developing a romantic connection, a romantic interest. I think that was all right.
Well, just the little ones like the one friend, the coworker, changing in the room and then commenting on the fact that she's changing and you're staring off into space, but it happens to be in her direction. It's like, that wasn't needed. It was just, it was an excuse to show them off, and it's like, I don't know about.
Right, that seemed a little gratuitous. And there's some argument to be made because when you think of Doctor Who, you think of a family program, and when you start to splinter off in things like Torchwood or things like Zygon or things like that, you deal with more adult themes, and I have no problem with that. In fact, in the Virgin New Adventures, they get into more adult things because they realized at the time that their fan base were growing. They were now adults. They were older. They were they had different ways that they processed material. They wanted different things, more adult things. It's okay, but I think Zygon maybe kind of pushes the envelope, as you were saying, where it becomes a little gratuitous at times. And there were a lot of full frontal shots that we didn't necessarily need at all. I mean, they're just unneeded. So it's a little off-putting. It's a little off-putting.
5 minutes into the film,
dragging Zygon Bob's body, face up, turn him over. Let's see the butt stuff. Front. I mean, it was things like that. I think they were unnecessary.
Yeah.
One of the things that TARDIS Wiki points out is that apparently this story was written by Lance Parkin, Jonathan Bloom, and Bill Baggs. And Bill Baggs, I guess they shot this in 2003. Baggs, who was also a producer, wasn't happy with it, so they reshot for a day as he redirected the script. And then it was released in 2008. So this actually was planned to be out much earlier than it was, and apparently he wasn't happy with parts of it. And I have to wonder, I don't know this for sure, but I have to wonder if maybe he is the caveat for pushing more of the sexual nudity and the things like that, those themes, and maybe that's what got changed. The flip side of that could be that maybe he decided to pare it back, and it could have been worse. But I think
Maybe he's the one that said, we got to go invade a plant.
yeah, well, that could be why the story changed as well. But the reason I say that is because Lance Parkin and Jonathan Bloom both are, they're familiar with Doctor Who. They have done Doctor Who material before. And I don't know much about this Bill Baggs with BVV, but I wonder if it was almost too Doctor Who for him, because coming from the source that it originally was, and they went through different iterations of the script. I don't know.
According to TARDIS Wiki, he was the founder of BBV.
Yes.
And so he helped produce a lot of those spin-off media.
Yeah, he did.
So,
in fact, there are 3 other Zygon stories that are audio that BVV did before this one. This is actually their 4th Zygon produced media. There are 3 audios before this. They don't have anything to do with as a whole together. So there's not. This isn't like the 4th part of, of a 4-part story. But there are 3
Do
other.
the 3
materials
audios go together, or are they just
that
three
I'm not
standalones?
aware of, but I know that they don't create a 4-part arc, so
Gotcha.
you don't have to have gone and listened to the first 3. So for next Zygon archive, perhaps we'll go back and listen to those. I mean, BVV's done some good stuff. Audio-wise, they've done a lot of good stuff. I don't think I've seen anything that they've done on video. I know they did the probe stuff, which is unit-ish, and I don't think they did Shakedown. I think that was real time.
he did wartime. They did wartime.
They did wartime. Okay.
No, like I said, it's not even that bad of a movie. When you know, because we're always trying to find the good in things. There are elements to it that, okay, cool. And as you said, it feels kind of like an amateur film, even though it's professionally done. But it's so kind of, I don't know, ham-fisted in its attempt to pull off some of these themes.
Well, it is. I think it is.
Yeah.
Ham-fisted is a good description.
It's just, it feels like they kind of sort of had a concept for what they wanted to do, that they wanted to do this Zygon film, and that, we can do what we want with it. We've got the characters, we've got the permission to this, we can do something with this alien race. And it's like, okay, cool, what do you want to do? Well, let's do this idea. Okay, fine. And then it just never really materialized in any coherent form, which is unfortunate, because I still think there's
a lot of potential here.
Yeah, potential's a good way to look at it. This film's full of potential. It just doesn't get realized at all.
And some of that potential is better in Zygon Who Fell to Earth. Some of those similar ideas, I think, are used better there.
I think it goes both ways. I think some of them are used in Zygon Who Fell to Earth, and some of them are used in Zygon Invasion, Zygon Inversion.
Getting to explore what it's like for the Zygon from this perspective is different and better than Fell to Earth.
Right. Because some of the
other ones do.
With the Capaldi 2-parter, when you get the scenes in Truth or Consequences, and the sheriff is kind of talking about how do you fight them, and the military, I don't remember the unit person, whoever she was, that was kind of going in, we're going to go and kill all the bad guys and do that stuff. But just the reality of how do you fight a ship-shifting army?
Yeah.
If they don't want to be found, they're not going to be found. It's just that difficult to deal with. And so flipping that concept on its head with somebody who wants to be human, or in the Zygon case, doesn't know that they're not human, is bought into the lie so completely that they're completely unaware that they are an alien who can shapeshift, and how hard they're holding on to that identity. I mean, that's a really deep, interesting story.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
They just didn't have maybe they didn't have the tools to do what they wanted to do with it. I'd like to believe that. I'd like to believe that somewhere that to this day the people are sitting around going, man, we were almost there. It just never fell apart.
Yeah.
What did you guys think of the actual Zygon that we finally get to see at near the end of the film?
I think the Zygon looks good.
I thought so too.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's a good realization. It does harken back to the style and terror, which is interesting that they do that when I think Real Time, when they did Shakedown, were concerned with their look of their Sontarn so much that they changed I think they're kind of orange, I think. So it was interesting that
They matched Doctor Who later.
it was interesting that went that direction and actually used a visualization we're familiar with.
I thought it was
good.
It was way better than I expected it to look
was
too.
Yeah.
Of course, maybe they bought
An old suit.
An old suit on eBay from Terror.
That's possible.
Well, should we talk a little more about Zygons since this is an Adversary Archive? Or?
The fun thing that I can take away from this week, just through serendipity, with putting these stories together in the way that they happened, including our Friday Night Who selection, is I want more. I really am curious to have some more Zygon stories and to get that backstory and what happened, and the fact that we've obliterated the planet and that they they don't have a homeworld anymore. As Keith mentioned, it would be really nice to get a Zygon story that's not set on Earth, that doesn't feel the invasion, it doesn't deal with the invasion of Earth or an attempt to terraform it. That let's go out and we're on a space station or something else, and there happen to be Zygons here, and they're up to something. And obviously, I imagine Zygons and Rutons, have a lot of the same.
Oh yeah.
Infiltrate and take over from within. So maybe that's an angle. Maybe they could bring the Rutons back as they set you up and you think you're going this way, and then it's I don't know. There's a lot of potential with the Zygons that I would like to see explored more, that don't necessarily even have to involve the rubber sucker monsters.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Especially now that they can electrocute people.
I think that's some of the challenge also with Zygons and probably why there is less, because when you have a shapeshifting alien, you tend to get a Invasion of the Body Snatchers type story, and it's a little harder to think outside the box of what can you do with these monsters other than have them masquerade as other people. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the downfalls of a Zygon, is the fact that they are shapeshifters, and while you'd think that would be ripe for ideas, but you kind of fall into the same familiar traps every time.
Well, the traps are so heavy that, in fact, this third Eighth Doctor adventure novel by BBC Books is called Body Snatchers. So,
and I commented during Friday Night Who how much Zygon Invasion, Zygon Inversion felt like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. It's very similar in themes, and the scene where Zygon Claire is walking across the quad and everybody is just sitting and kind of ignoring their surroundings except for the one guy who's paranoid. This is just like Body Snatchers.
Or the police officers in the car that give, the Doctor and Osgood absolutely nothing but blank stares until they decide, we're okay, we don't need you, and they walk away, and they get out of the car and sort of, menacingly stare at them as they walk closer. So, yeah, very much so as far as Body Snatchers goes. I don't know if I'm chomping at the bit to see more in the new series of the Zygons. I think they've kind of been utilized well enough in the new series. I don't know where you'd go with them. I am excited to go back and look at some of the material that does exist to see where they went with them, especially between Terror and the Zygon two-parter in Series 9, because I want to know how different, because when you connect these things, when you're doing television, you look at the very surface of it, because a lot of that we consider expanded universe stuff doesn't necessarily work canonically. But when you have something like Terror and then Day of the Doctor and the Zygon two-parters, you look at those as a whole. So I'd like to see how the in-betweens have kind of been filled in, and how people have gone with those. But as far as the new series goes, I don't know that we need Zygons in TV for another couple of seasons, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, well, as with any Doctor Who villain, they don't need to come back all the time. Yeah. I know it's sacrilegious. I'd be fine if we went a whole season without a Dalek.
Well,
I think keep that mystery.
That's the problem with Zygons, I think, is you'll get Dalek or even Cyberman Syndrome, where you start seeing the same MO, or you just see them as the heavy bad. Or
they wind up changing the MO so drastically that it's not... That everyone should have came up with a new character.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, too, is...
And you have an Angel Syndrome.
Now that we've done Zygon Invasion, Zygon Inversion, where do you go besides reverting them back to Terror Zygons, where they're just invaders? Yeah. And so I think that's why I think...
a story on a different planet would be different.
I agree. That
or
does
continuing
work.
to do something with Osgood. Since that's...
Yeah, but I think continuing to do something...
I'm not saying that I want that. I'm saying that's where
continuing to do something with Osgood, which I think we will, and I think that's why we get that drop line that I'll tell you someday. But I think we can have Osgood as a character, knowing she's a Zygon, or possibly a Zygon, or the other Zygon. We know there's at least one.
of those.
But you can have the Osgood characters doing something different. I mean, it doesn't have to be even connected to the Zygon as a culture
Right.
or race.
Yeah.
It's
It can have
just
no
just-
impact on
yeah.
the fact
So
that-
so Osgood is freed up to be able to go on and not be connected to another Zygon story.
No, I agree with that. I think the danger is that if they bring the Zygons back, there's going to be that, well, let's bring Osgood back into it and we'll deal with some more of that. And it's like, I agree with you. I don't know that there's
Yeah.
much more that we can do with
done
that
that,
particular
yeah.
story, where the way Inversion leaves off, it's like, we're done. I mean,
Yeah.
that's kind of the end of this particular threat. But going off planet, yeah, I think there's some opportunity for that. Now, will they?
Probably not.
Probably not.
Well, it is a time travel television series, so they could go back to the Zygon's past where
It's true.
their planet still exists
Yeah.
and explore some story there.
Which I think would be interesting.
Yeah, I'd be down
More
for
of that
too.
backstory.
Of course, now we say that as Who fans.
Well-
Does the general JQ public want the Zygon Homeworld story?
We say that as Who fans who do a Who podcast. Do we really care what JQ Public does? JQ Public is not
Touche.
listening to our podcast, I can tell you
Yeah,
that.
that's true. Too true.
If you are, and you've just come to the to the podcast, well, thank you for coming.
Yeah.
And if you're JQ Public, thanks for listening. Yeah, I don't know that like I say, I'm excited to go back and see what others have done with the Zygon story prior to this. I'm not exempting them from the series ever being in the series again. I just think they need to wait until they can come up with a very good idea that's different than what we've seen before.
Well, and because they've been in the show so infrequently, it almost sets a new standard for them that there is a bar that they have to reach, and by coming back more frequently, you run the risk of not reaching that bar level.
Yeah,
Right.
I would agree.
Well, as the Daleks are really the poster child for this, that, hey, they're popular, let's bring them back. And you can only go to the well so many times before you repeat yourself. And the Daleks have definitely fallen into that. I think Cybermen have also kind of been victimized by that. Any of the other races, the Zygons, the Sontarans, the Ice Warriors, at least in the Ice Warriors case, they were finding different things to do with them, which
Yeah.
was cool. The Sontarans have fallen into that same rut until we got Strax, but now everything's Strax-centric. That's kind of what I'm worried about with the Zygons, is we've got all these Zygon stories, and now Osgood comes along, so are all the Zygon stories going to be Osgood-centric from this point forward? So as long as you can, and hey, he's going to write another Ice Warrior story, cool. As long as we can, continue to push that envelope, find something new to do with them, and not just, it's an Ice Warrior story, So from that regard, yes, I would like to see more Zygon stuff if it can be kept above the bar. If we can find a legitimately good, cool thing to do with them, absolutely. But then there are other races that I don't know that I'd want to see back, even if you could devise a cool way to do it. The Wire.
Well,
Which we did get back,
we
and it
did
was
get back, and it was
better way.
Yeah, it was done cleverly. It at least advanced what they can do, what the
The concepts.
the concepts. Yeah,
Yeah.
advanced the concepts of the Wire. Well,
Sill.
all right. Well, we're coming up with the schedule, Sean.
Well, coming up on the schedule this week for Friday Night Who, our weekly Doctor Who watch along, Friday nights at midnight, we're doing The Gunfighters. One of Glenn's favorites.
Get ready to get that song stuck in your head.
Stuck in my head now already.
But that will free us up, because we've obviously already reviewed The Gunfighters. So then that will free us up to talk some Candy Jar books next week. We're going to cover the Christmas Files and the 2 Christmas short stories that were just released before the holiday, and also the new book, Mind of Stone. Mind of
Yes.
Stone? Mind of Stone.
Yep.
I keep wanting to
But in reverse
change the
order,
title.
right? Because
Stone of
Mind of
Mind?
Stone comes before the Christmas.
Now we're going to review them in reverse order.
Oh, yeah.
Mind of Stone comes before the Christmas stories, right?
I believe you're
Yeah,
correct, yes.
okay.
I keep wanting to change that title for some reason. I don't know why. Mind of Stone, it just doesn't stick in my mind for some reason. Because I have a stone mind, probably. I have not yet updated the schedule online to accommodate our John Hurt retrospective last week, but I will very much attempt to try and get that done this week. But I mean, everything is still the same, just the dates have changed.
Yeah.
So they're still coming in that order. And that's that.
Excellent.
All right. Well, if you're already supporting us on Patreon, we appreciate it. And if not, we would like to see more people out there that could do so. If you can go to the button on our page, travelingthevortex.com. You can sign up to support us on Patreon, and all of those proceeds go back into this podcast. And then there are some links on the right-hand side where you can purchase things from Amazon and the sort, and a portion of those proceeds also go back into this podcast. Keith, how can they reach us?
You can send us feedback at travelingthevortex.com. And, of course, we're on social media. Just look for us.
Anything else we need to touch on before we close this show, fellas?
Thank you very much for listening and putting up with our prattling.
Yes.
That's going to do it for this week. Until next week, I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Be seeing you.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.